let's get into this conversation around how and why we abandon ourselves in relationships. So, as I alluded to in the introduction, self-abandonment can take many forms. And in my mind, it's essentially anything we do where we're choosing connection to other over connection to ourselves. And that might sound a little abstract, but what I'm talking about is biting our tongue to keep the peace, or not speaking up for fear that someone will become defensive or reject us, or pretending to be fine with something when really we're not fine with it, allowing certain behaviors that really feel uncomfortable for us, continuing in a connection that doesn't feel right because we're scared of letting go. All of these things where we are overriding our inner judgment, our inner wisdom, our sense of right and wrong, our integrity, our boundaries, our comfort. We're overriding all of those things in order to hold on to someone else. And here, the relationship between self-abandonment and a fear of abandonment in relationships becomes really apparent, because if you look at all of those things, really we're doing it as a way to buffer against the risk of someone leaving us, or someone not wanting us, or someone saying we're too much. And so in order to prevent that from happening, when that's something that we fear so deeply and viscerally, that someone's going to leave me, I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, I am unworthy, all of these big, deep beliefs that we can have about ourselves, whether consciously or not. When we've always got this sense that connection is very fragile and could be withdrawn at any moment, that we're going to be blindsided, that someone is going to just pull away and we're going to be left on our own, we have this imperative in our system to try and make sure that doesn't happen. And for a lot of us, we learned at a very young age to morph ourselves into whatever shape we needed to take in order to make the people around us happy, to keep the peace, to keep people close, to prevent rupture. And that felt paramount to our sense of safety. And of course it did, right? Of course it did. Because as a child, abandonment is literally a life threat. And so we are wired to do whatever we need to do to prevent that from happening. And to be very clear here, abandonment doesn't have to mean literal physical abandonment, being left out on the street as a child, but the sense of I'm alone in a frightening experience. I have no one that I can reach for or lean on or be protected by. That's a very, very frightening experience for a young person. And so if there was any sense of that, if there was any sense of not having the support you needed, not being able to rely on your caregivers or the other people around you to create a really consistent and reliable sense of safety for you, physical, emotional, all types of safety, that fear gets really deeply wired into your system. And naturally, you will go to great lengths to prevent that from happening, to prevent being left alone with your fear that feels too big to handle, right? And so while we can look at that in its early expressions and see that it makes absolutely perfect sense and is incredibly wise that we would adapt in that way, taking on people-pleasing behaviors or performing, achieving, peacemaking, being a conflict mediator, whatever role we might have taken in our family system, we can also see that carrying that through to our adult romantic relationships and maybe other relationships as well, friendships, family dynamics as an adult, we're still harboring this deep fear of being alone and being left and what that might mean about us. And that's still influencing the shapes that we take in our lives. And the key here is to really understand that while you may not have had other options when you first learned to do these things, as adults, we do have choices, and our job is to remind, to teach, to show our system that actually we're not back there anymore. We're in the here and now, and we are competent, capable, autonomous adults with agency, and we're no longer trapped in the past, because that's oftentimes what those fearful parts of us and those protective parts of us, that's where they're at, and that's what they're afraid of, and that's what they're trying to keep us safe from.